Hey everybody, welcome to Explorations. My name is Rob. The Arctic ride is over. It has come to an end. I think by the time this video comes out, our last video was released about a month ago maybe. So sad times, it's done, but big thanks to everyone who watched it and supported us and left comments on the videos. It feels good, man. It feels good. You know, we put a lot of work into the ride itself, obviously, but that was an adventure, and we put a lot of work into editing the videos, and we got really good reception from all of you kind folks, and we want to say thank you. Thank you for that. It makes us feel good. And if you hadn't had a chance to watch it yet, I'll put a link over one of these shoulders here, but go check it out. Basically, it was the three of us did a 16,000 kilometer motorcycle ride to the Arctic Ocean via the Dempster Highway and the Equpiment Highway. Still can't say that properly, but yeah, it was fantastic. We did it over 6 weeks, and we filmed the whole thing and put it up for your viewing pleasure, so if you get a chance, go check it out. But like I said, we got lots of great feedback on it, lots of great comments, and one of the recurring comments were people asking how we recorded everything, how we filmed things on the bike, off the bike, what our video setup was, what our audio setup was. So that's what we're going to be looking at today, right after this sweet intro. So, as I said, we're going to be looking at our video and audio equipment that we used to record the trip, both on and off the bikes. We're going to be talking about each setup that we use. We'll talk about the pros, we'll talk about the cons, and we'll also discuss things we would change in the future for future trips. So let's start with on the bike recording, what we used to film while we were riding. And the majority of that was done using this setup right here. It is my GoPro Hero 7 setup on my Scorpion AT950 helmet. Now, I did a bit of a video before the trip showing how I have all that set up and how I put it together. I'll put a link for that over one of these shoulders again. It's up there somewhere. Check it out if you're interested. But this is what we did the majority of the filming on. So this consists of our GoPro Hero 7, one of our GoPro Hero 7s, the audio mic adapter for the GoPro. Audio was recorded with a lapel mic that I had affixed to the inside of my helmet, and that is what plugs into the GoPro mic adapter. The mic plugs into the microphone jack on the adapter, and then the adapter itself plugs into the GoPro via the USB port here, Type-C USB. And then we have our GoPro helmet mount, also very important to attach everything to the helmet. So basically, this was all mounted to the chin of the helmet, as I said, using the GoPro Hero mount. It was oriented in a way that it was looking forward, basically right off of my chin. Having it mounted in this location allows you to basically see what I am seeing, albeit a little bit lower, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, but I do think in terms of helmet mounting, that is the best position to have a helmet camera. Let's talk about the pros of the setup first of all. First of all, as I said, it's a good spot to mount. You're mostly looking at what the rider is looking at, and because it's mounted essentially on your body, you don't have the vibration. Your body sort of acts as a shock absorber, so it gives you a much smoother image. Also, using this setup, your audio is recorded with your video, so there's no need to import secondary audio files when you're doing your editing, and you have to sync up those files. Everything is recorded all in one batch, makes it a lot easier in post. And also on my particular setup, you can see part of the screen actually from the helmet, so I know when it's actually recording. I'm also able to look in my mirror and see the screen on the GoPro, and that also shows me when it's recording. So it's a kind of a good way to double check everything's set up and running properly. The final pro is we're using a GoPro. GoPros are robust cameras. They're meant to be mounted in places like your helmet, where they're going to be exposed to things like dust, rocks, moisture, wetness, rain, all that good stuff. These are robust cameras. They can take it, and we've shown that they can take it based on what we put them through on our ride. So let's talk about some of the cons with this setup. The biggest con is that it's loud. The helmet, this helmet in particular, is a loud helmet. Any helmet with a visor is going to be louder than a more streamlined helmet. Obviously, there's a lot more wind resistance, and it's just a loud helmet. So I was finding that anything above 50 kilometers an hour, there was a lot of wind noise getting into the mic, and you get that wind roar, which basically drowns everything out and blows out your mic, and it sounds awful. Below 50, it was perfect. It was really, really good, but once you get above 50, it was not great. Also, speaking about blowing out the mic, it's very easy to go over range on your mic when the mic is mounted, like a quarter inch from your mouth. That's just practice. That comes with practice. You have to talk not quietly, you have to use your normal talking voice when your mic is mounted here. If you talk too loud, you're gonna blow it out, it's gonna sound bad. Now that is very, very difficult when you are wearing earphones and you're in a loud helmet. You naturally want to talk loud so you can hear yourself talking. So I blew out and lost a lot of footage. The mic was picking up way, way too much. It wasn't great. And that's something I just gotta practice going forward. Another con, with the setup, you are now dealing with two audio connection points. You have your mic jack and you have the USB connection point into the GoPro. If either of those is not fully connected, your audio is not gonna work at all, or it's gonna sound really, really bad. And we lost a lot of footage because of that. Again, that's on us. That's something that I need to be checking more so than I was. I was checking it, but every once in a while, I would miss something or something would vibrate out and it wouldn't be fully connected and the audio quality would be not usable, basically. Using the microphone audio adapter with the GoPro, it makes your GoPro no longer waterproof. When the GoPros are assembled without the adapter, they are waterproof. And that's why they need the adapter, because mic jacks make these no longer waterproof. And in order to attach that mic adapter and mic jack, you have to remove the side door here. And now, your GoPro is now no longer waterproof. You have this access to the internals of the camera here, so you gotta be very careful when you're using a setup like this and you're using the microphone adapter. Keep in mind, your GoPro is no longer waterproof. Now that being said, I did keep it mounted on my helmet in light rain conditions, and obviously it was fine, it worked. But in heavier rains, I did put that door back on, remove the mic adapter, and remove the mic, which now means I'm no longer recording audio. I'm still getting that footage, but in heavy rains, there's not going to be any audio recording, at least not with this setup. Further cons with this setup, as I'm sure you've probably noticed, and I definitely noticed in the videos, is you have to make sure it is aimed correctly. You may have noticed that a lot of the on-bike shots, the camera was aimed a little bit too low. That's sort of just a result of where it was mounted on the helmet, the style of helmet, and the style of mount I used. I couldn't get the camera to angle up any higher. It was fully maxed out. And as you can see on the case here, I actually had to cut out a little notch in the case to fit it around this nut on the mount in order to get it back that much farther. But even so, a lot of my footage was looking too far down. The dash of the bike was filling up half of the shot, which is not ideal. So I had to keep in mind when I was recording that I had to keep my head up. So if you are using a setup like this, make sure you have it aimed as good as possible, because remember to keep your head up, and doing this while you're riding, it's not great. But unfortunately, it was a necessary evil that I had to do, and it didn't always work out. So finally, and this comes back to your microphone again, having your mic mounted right here, you're picking up a lot of your breath. Now, this isn't the mic I used. This is a Purple Panda mic, which I'm planning to use. The mic I used had a much smaller dead cat, and that may have attributed to part of the problem. But yes, having it here, you have to make sure if you're breathing heavy, to not breathe heavy, basically. Try really hard while you're talking, while you're filming this, to breathe as lightly as possible, because any big breaths, any big sighs get picked up, and they're loud and noticeable. Sometimes it's unavoidable. Sometimes it adds to the shot when you're breathing heavy, but for the most part, you don't want that breathy sound. So things we would change for the setup to make it better going forward. First off, and I already talked about this a bit, is I have a different mic now. Like I said, this is a Purple Panda mic. The mic I was using before was a much cheaper quality, much smaller dead cat, and probably a much lower pickup range. So I haven't used this yet, but my understanding is that I am able to speak a little louder into this mic without blowing out the volume on it, basically. Also, the big dead cat might reduce some of that noise, the wind noise in the helmet, and I'm hoping it's going to reduce some of the breathiness as well. We are going to see going forward. Next, and as I kind of touched on already, is I have to practice talking quieter. That's very difficult to do when you're wearing a helmet, as I said, when you're talking into your comms, which you have to speak loud so others can hear you. I have to remember when I'm recording, I have to talk in my normal voice. I can't hear myself talking, which makes it very difficult, but it's something I gotta practice so I'm not ruining the audio quality of the shots. So moving on to our next on-bike filming. I don't have it here, but we're talking about Damien's GoPro Hero 8, which was set to record in 360 mode. That is how we got all those really, really cinematic, panoramic, all those other ick kind of shots, where it's one continuous shot and you pan around or you pan up or you pan out and Damien's riding on a little ball. That is all done with a GoPro Hero 8 in 360 mode. But that is how those shots were captured. So let's talk about the pros again of the GoPro Hero 8. Again, it's a GoPro, so it's rugged. It's meant to be out in the elements. It's meant to be exposed to dust. And as you know, if you watched the videos, it actually fell off his bike a couple times and it survived. The one time it fell off, we were doing high speeds and the lens protectors didn't survive, but the camera did and the lenses on the camera did. So very rugged. The lens protectors did what they needed to do. The camera survived, the footage survived. So thumbs up GoPro. Hero 8 is very rugged. We've tested it. The other pro, as I touched on a little bit, is you can make those really interesting dynamic shots. It adds a lot of interest to your videos where you have these big sweeping panoramic shots, or you can make these more interesting angles looking at the rider. The GoPro Hero 8 is fantastic for that, and it helps to break up your video a bit to have a different style shot like that. Also, because it's a 360 camera, you don't have to worry about the precise aiming that I was concerned about with the GoPro Hero 7 on the helmet. It's 360, you aim it where you want to in post, you don't have to set it up perfectly. So let's talk about some of the cons of this setup. The big con with this is that there's a lot of editing required in post. You get these 360 files that you then have to go through and manipulate in order to capture the shot you want from those files. Unless you're uploading 360 videos, which we are not, our videos are all flattened, and because they're flattened, Damien had to spend a lot of time going through his footage, aiming the camera where he wants it in his footage, and doing and manipulating that footage the way that he wanted it uploaded. So it's another step in editing, another step in post. Because it's a 360 camera, it's got very, very high resolution, which is great, except for when you flatten it like we did, you actually end up losing your resolution. So you can tell in the 360 shots, it's a little grainier, the resolution's not quite as good as it is with the GoPro Hero 7. That's just because of the way the 360 records. It's a very high resolution image when it's a full 360, but if you focus in on one part of the image, you lose some of that resolution. Another con with this is the file size. When you are recording 360 videos, your file sizes are gigantic. So even for a short video, you're going to be getting into the tens of gigs of file size in like a 1 or 2 minute video. And longer videos, the file sizes are giant. So if you're doing a long trip like we did, you have to really keep in mind your data management, how you're storing these files, keep in mind how quickly you're going to fill up that storage, how quickly you're going to fill up your SD cards and that sort of thing. Always keep that in mind, especially on a long trip like I said. The final con with this setup is depending on where it's mounted on the bike, we often found that we had to stop in order to set up the mount, in order to turn the camera on. Then we would ride, get the shot, and then stop, turn the camera off and take it off the mount. Again, that's sort of just dependent on where on the bike it was. There were some times where Damien was able to start and stop while riding, but depending on the shot he was going for, if it was over his shoulder, for example, obviously he can't be reaching back and turning his camera on and off, so we had to really plan out our shots, and that adds on time. So in regards to what we would change going forward with the setup, there's not a whole lot we can really change. I think Damien did everything correctly. The big thing, and again, if you watch the videos, you know what this is better quality mounts. The mounts that Damien used, they all failed. There's videos of them failing. The camera fell twice off his bike. It's not great, but that's just sort of the way it went. The final on-bike recording method we use is this setup right here. just a standard GoPro Hero 7 in the standard case. Obviously we weren't using this for audio recording because the wind noise is going to blow out the audio on the GoPro Hero 7 speakers. We knew that wasn't the issue. We were looking more for interesting and dynamic shots. We called this our B-reel camera. It wasn't really B-reel, but that's what we were calling it, just so we knew what we were talking about. And the majority of those shots we use this clamp for. Basically with this clamp you're able to attach it to various parts of the bike, get interesting shots. We attached it down on my crash bars, looking at the wheels. You got that interesting tire shot. You can kind of see your shocks going up and down. Adds a little interest. You're able to attach it to the back plate looking backwards so I could film the people behind me. And there's a whole lot of different mounting options you can do with this clamp. It came in very handy. And yeah, it worked out really well, as you can see. Another location we had this mounted was on my ram mount on my handlebars. Again, this just allows for a different type of recording, a different type of shot. You can have it mounted looking forward. You can see a little bit of bike in the frame. You can see the road in front of you. What I used it more for was actually looking backwards, looking at me. Again, just to break up those long shots. A little clip of me looking at me is a way to add a little bit more interest into what would otherwise be a long shot. Using this clamp, we were also able to mount it to the dash of the car, and that allowed all those through the windshield shots of the whole group of us riding. That was from the car, that was using this setup here. No audio was used in any of those shots because it's just the in-car audio, which is not great, but it did allow for that full shot of the three of us riding. So, the pros of this setup, it allows for, as I mentioned, a good variety of different shots. Depending on where you mount on the bike, you can get a lot of really interesting things, a lot of very different shots. I really like the ones where it was really close to the ground. It gives you a good sense of speed. You can see the tires, you can see the shocks. It's visually interesting to see that kind of shot. And it breaks up long shots that are otherwise just my helmet cam, me looking down the road. Another pro is it's a GoPro Hero 7. It's compact, it's rugged again. We started out the ride with two of them, we ended with one, but it's nice to have that same style camera because then all the peripherals fit with that camera as well. So, some of the cons of this setup. This is a really good clamp, but depending on how rough the roads were, this did tend to travel a little bit just due to bike vibration, so you had to really keep a close eye on it. Even the GoPro mounts, I was finding, depending on how rough the road was, sometimes the camera would fall forward or fall backwards. That's going to ruin your shot, so keep a close eye. You're not going to be able to get a really, really long shot with this, but you can definitely get 30, 40 seconds, maybe a minute, depending on how rough the roads are. The other con using this kind of setup and using various mountings on the bike, you're going to have to stop and start for the majority of them in order to start and stop the camera. Especially the ones that are mounted down low on the bike or mounted behind me. I didn't want to be messing around, reaching down, trying to start and stop a camera, or trying to reach behind me, start and stop a camera. The safe way to do it, and the correct way to do it, because you can check your positioning, is plan the shot out, stop the bike, get everything set up, start the camera, take your shot for however long you want to do it, then you stop, turn everything off, reset everything if you want, or take it apart. It just adds on time. In terms of what we would change going forward with this setup, really the only change we should have done is we should have filmed more with it. We didn't really, because I mentioned the time factor, a lot of times we're just trying to get through. We're trying to cover that distance. So there wasn't a lot of time for stopping and setting things up and filming and starting again and so forth and so forth. But the reality of the situation is we really should have. As I said, those B-reel shots add a lot to videos. You get a lot of interesting angles. It keeps people engaged with your content when you have those different shots. So going forward, more B-reel. Again, that's on us. It's just something that we have to get into the habit of doing and keeping in mind that we are going to be losing time in the day to get these shots. So that's the on-bike recording. Let's move into how we recorded everything else off the bike. And we are going to be starting with this rig right here. This is essentially the same setup that I had mounted to my helmet. It's that Ulanzi case, GoPro Hero 7 mic adapter, only this time I have a Rode microphone with this giant dead cat on it. And this is what we filmed most of the off-bike footage with. The first pro of this setup is that it's relatively compact. We could have used something like a bigger DSLR camera, but that adds a lot of weight, it adds a lot of bulk. using the Hero 7. It's just a smaller setup, a little easier to carry around with you, and we did carry it around a lot, so it just felt better to have that more compact setup. Second pro, as I mentioned earlier, is it's a camera that we already have. This is what we're using on the bikes, this is what we're using on the helmet, GoPro Hero 7. All the accessories are the same, all the peripherals are the same. It's nice to have everything sort of the same, so everything plays well with each other. Again, being a GoPro, it's rugged and it's waterproof. So I felt comfortable carrying this up some of like the mountains we climbed. I felt comfortable going into the water with it for the most part. I knew it wasn't going to be damaged. I knew it could withstand a fall. So let's talk about the cons of this setup. Con number one is GoPro audio isn't great without the audio adapter. And as you can see, we did use that microphone audio adapter and an external mic. The onboard mics on the GoPros aren't great. But again, when you're using that adapter, it now makes your camera no longer waterproof, which is not great. The next con is that the image quality on the GoPro Hero 7, although it's good, it's not as good as some other camera options out there. As I mentioned, something like a DSLR, a lot better image quality. Even our phones have a better image quality. They have a little more fine-tuning you can do on your phones, especially if you start installing third-party apps that allow you to really play with your camera settings on your phones. You can get a much better image quality on your phone. And the final con with this setup is the directional mic. Now, it's a fantastic mic, but it's directional. So you have to really keep in mind what you're going to be filming and where you want yourself situated in relation to that mic. So if I'm filming people in front of me, or I'm talking to Damien, I'm talking to Ian, I want that mic facing forward. That picks up their audio fantastic. The issue is the person behind the camera does not sound great when that mic is facing away from them. And again, final con, same as with the helmet, is you have to make sure those audio connections are seated correctly. You want that mic jack firmly attached, and you want the adapter firmly attached to the GoPro, or else your audio is bad or non-existent, which is also bad. So going forward, things we would change with this setup. First and foremost, always be checking those audio connections before each shot, after each shot. That's just on us, that's habit we gotta get into. Always be checking connections. And finally, going forward, I think we're gonna probably rely somewhat less on this setup and start using our phones more. As I said, you do get a better image quality with phones, and with proper setups you can get a really good audio quality as well. This is still perfect for more intense adventuring, let's say, you know, when you're climbing those mountains, when you're going into water. You probably don't want your phones in that situation. So that is somewhere where this is perfect, but for, I think, a lot of the other shots, I think a phone is a better option. And that brings us to our final recording setup, and that was just our phones. Just holding our phones, basically, walking around, taking selfies, taking shots, panoramics, what have you. Just our phones. As we said, the image quality is pretty decent on most phones. Depending on how much money you're willing to spend, you can get really good image quality, you can get really good manipulation, the ability to set up your shots the way you want using your phone, especially if you're getting into third-party software. There's a lot you can do with these, they're very versatile. So yes, this is we filmed a little bit with this, and I think we're going to be filming more with these into the future. Pros of your phone is it's your phone. You have it there, it's readily available. Mine's usually hanging out in my pocket when it's not falling off my bike. And yeah, they're there, they're ready to go. It's real easy to set up, point and click and go. Shot's done. And again, using your phones, like I said, you can have different setups. Especially using things like your 3x zoom on your phone, it gives you the ability to capture those really awesome landscapes that make you, it really captures the height of things. So, you know, riding through the mountains, you know, you use that 3x zoom, it really gives the viewer the perspective of how big things are. So, some of the cons with phones, first and foremost, they're not a GoPro, they're not as rugged, they do not survive falls off of bikes. Not that we're filming on the bikes with them, but, you know, dropping a phone is not going to be a good scene. So it's not something you want to be taking out in situations where there's the potential of them getting dropped. That's what the GoPros are for. But these are great for, you know, walking around town, stop to the side of the road, somewhere where you're comfortable they're not going to be damaged. The phones are good for that. Second con of the phone, at least my phone, probably the majority of phones, is the bass audio quality on your phone is not great. You're going to get a lot of wind noise, and depending on the phone, your audio quality is not going to be as good as something like our GoPro setup with our mic and DidCat. And finally, the image stability on the phone is not super great if you're just holding it on a mount or just holding it in your hand. Without having like a gimbaled mount, I was finding the shots were getting a little shaky, especially when we're walking down the street and talking into the phone. There was a lot of vibration that had to be removed in post. So going forward, as I said, what we would change is we would probably be using phones more. There was a lot of times where it was unnecessary to use the GoPro, and because we're going to be using our phones more, I'm going to be changing the setup a little bit. I do have a Rode mic that I've purchased since the trip that I can attach to my phone here to record better audio quality. I'm probably going to be looking to getting some sort of gimbaled mount, something I can hold in my hand to try to dampen that vibration, because I do think going forward we're going to try to film more with the phones, less with the GoPro. So that's it for our video and audio setup for the Arctic ride. If you haven't seen the Arctic ride, as I said, go check it out. We liked it a lot. It was a great trip, and we got really good reviews on the video, so please go check them out if you have a chance, if you're interested. See how our cinematography skills, how they worked out in that, and stay tuned for videos in the future where we're going to put some of these changes to test, see how they work out for us. We can only improve, right? So until next time, everyone, that is it for us. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give us a like and a subscribe. It helps us out a lot. We'll see you next time.